Recording. Okay, so good morning, everyone. Jodie Siemens here from Taking Perspective. And here we are at How Do We Become Our Courageous Selves? A webinar on being able to work through our fears and just step through our comfort zone a little bit. So today's topic, so we're going to talk about why do I have a lack of courage? Do I have the ability to be courageous? Excuse me. How do I overcome fear and become courageous? And 3 tips just to help you along your path. So the first one is, why do I have a lack of courage? So this, simply put, stems usually from a learned experience, some sort of memory that you've got from your past, because our memories and our experiences are what form our beliefs, they're what form our patterns of behaviour. So by identifying the sources of your specific fears, so where they actually came from, you can help take some proactive steps to helping you change the behaviour and ultimately gaining some courage in any given situation. Excuse me, got a bit of a cough this morning. So it's usually, as I said, from an experience, memory, something's happened in your past. And often these are things that stack upon each other. It's not usually one specific thing. It's usually something that's compounded. It's a repeat pattern, and it is something that's continually happened. And it's put you in a place of suffering from a lack of courage. And it's usually a fear-orientated emotion. So here, do I have the ability to be courageous? Even in the most fearful of situations, you will be courageous in some aspect of it. You're never completely not courageous. So it might seem that you can't always recognise and, pinpoint that moment of courage within the situation because you felt like you weren't courageous at all. So, there's all sorts of ways to help build confidence and help build the courage. So having confidence and believing in your own ability is a part of being courageous. And the other part of it is being courageous is a personality trait. It's not necessarily something that we are innately born with, as I say, because it usually comes from an issue that we've suffered from in our past memories. And that's created the fear around bad experiences and memories, and having the courage to move through the situations in life can be quite difficult, and you can actually find yourself struggling, and it's again just due to bad experiences. But if the way we move through and develop the ability to be courageous is by being able to identify and source where the lack of courage actually comes from, and being able to actively change those behaviours around that. So doing some rewiring of your patterns and how you react to certain situations instead of being able to step back and reflect to them. So this can help you build confidence in all aspects of your life. So how do we overcome fear and become courageous? So doing something that you wouldn't normally do certainly helps you cope with things that, when they pop up, are unexpected. Often fear will come from the uncertain, that risk that comes with that unknown. So learning to deal with that fear in that particular situation, you're able to just build a bit of a buffer when something unexpected happens, if you start to do things that you wouldn't normally do, because that sort of pushes you through that fear a little bit, and therefore you're creating that little bit of extra buffer around something popping up, and you know, you're uncertain about it, and you know that there's some sort of risk around it and all those sorts of things, so it's unexpected. So the idea is to start small with small actions and slowly, I suppose you're putting yourself in a place where you're bringing on fear. You want to subject yourself to potentially slightly fearful situations, especially if you find yourself not one to do something out of the normal or something unexpected. But again, it's about creating small steps and slowly building that fear muscle. So courage is considered by many to be a very important human virtue. So in medieval times, it was considered one of the 4 cardinal virtues. So modern psychologists agree learning how to be courageous, even if it's just, even if you're just to ask a person how they're doing, could potentially take you massively out of your comfort zone. So, you know, being able to just speak up and say, hi, how are you? Yeah, it could definitely be something for some people to take them out of their comfort zone. And this is where you're doing something different. And this is where you're pushing through that and taking that risk, because that person may be having a bad day and may snap back at you, but they may be so grateful that you asked that they just shower you with compliments and how grateful they are for you asking that question. So it's that risk of uncertainty, not knowing how that other party is going to react to you. So it's a way of learning despite your own fear. So you actually have to put yourself in slightly different situations where it will create some sort of fear and build upon that. So here are 3 tips to help you on your path to courage. Okay, so firstly, as I've spoken about before, identify your fears. People are often reluctant to admit that they are afraid of something, and this may undermine their confidence and courage. So in order to start to begin to build courage, if you feel that that is an issue for you, you need to determine what the specific fear is. Where did it come from? What is it? What are the emotions around that, and being able to work through that process. Okay. The second tip I have for you today is figure out what causes the fears. So a lack of courage often stems from the fear, again, of something learned from a memory of experience. So identifying the source, as I keep talking about, specifically, and then taking the proactive steps to change the behavior around that fear that you have. So yeah, it's about that changing the pattern, how you reflect instead of react to any given situation. So the third tip I have is recognize when you do have courage. And this is, I thought, was quite an important one. So just as important as it is to identify your fears, you also need to identify areas that you are courageous, because we all are courageous in some aspects of our lives. We are all confident in some aspects of our life and less confident in other aspects. So we're going to be more courageous when we're feeling more confident about something, and obviously less courageous when we're not so confident. So we need to make sure that we adapt that process of acknowledging when we are courageous and when we are in that place, and figure out the tools that we are using in that process to actually become that courageous person, and try and break that down and use that those tools, so that, you know, the next time, you know, something does pop up and puts you in a situation, you can draw upon those tools and start to use them when you're feeling less courageous. So you can use identifying your most courageous moments as a learning tool to break down, to help you step forward in other areas where you're feeling a lack of courage. So the final thoughts on this is appearances can be deceptive. Many people project that they have courage and confidence even when they don't possess it. So learning from these people's ability to project these feelings can also help you in your building confidence. So everyone has courage in some areas and fears in others. It's normal. It's a part of being human. So we just need to learn to identify what they are and hold on to our strength and courage when we feel it and when we have it. And again, that's going back to tip 3. It's really, really important that you do identify and acknowledge when you do have these feelings, these strengths and these courage in situations where you are confident. The next one is being courageous takes practice. It's not something that will click of the finger and it will just happen. So the more you face fears, as I spoke about earlier, just small steps, for you, it could be just, as I said, asking someone how their day is, how they are. It could be about, sitting down with your partner and having a conversation that you've been dreading to have, because we just really don't know what's on the other side of that. And that's where the courage comes in. So it's really about facing your fears and dealing with those negative emotions that come up when we do face those fears. And that's about learning where they come from and the emotions around them and how to deal with them. So to be able to use courage and stand up when others can't, this is a big thing. You find, that old saying, knight in shining armor, or, someone come to you in a moment and stood up for you in front of other people. This is a form of courage, and this can be in the workplace. You may be accused of, letting down the team, for example. And as it turns out, we understand how when you're working in a team, that there's a ripple effect. If someone doesn't do their part and the cogs start turning, they stop turning and the next person can't do their part in a team environment. So, you may find that it may have been another team member that dropped the ball slightly, which meant you had no choice but to drop the ball. But people aren't aware of that. So it's about, that situation. If you're in that situation, you could potentially go, well, actually, it was me who dropped the ball, or because standing up and admitting, when you're wrong is also facing a fear, and being able to stand up for others when you know that they're in the right and help defend their integrity is also facing a fear. So when you can help comfort your fear, you can also help comfort others within your community. So imagine that you can do it until you no longer have to imagine. I liked that, so that's why I popped that in there. Last but not least, imagine that you can do it until you no longer have to imagine. Okay, awesome. So just a few promos I've got going. The 5-day vulnerability challenge. This program is a guided program through 5 days of self-care and rituals that will help you open up and accelerate your ability to take control of all aspects of your life. This is a self-paced challenge, so whilst you would get emails and videos for 5 consecutive days, it's also about you learning to lean into your thoughts and your beliefs, your emotions, your feelings, and sitting with them, processing them, and getting a deeper understanding of them. So if you're finding that each of the tasks take you a little bit longer, then, there's no right or wrong way. It's just the way the challenge is set up. And after the 5 days, you'll have all the information you need. And, it may take you 10 days, it may take you 20 days. It's really up to you, as it is self-paced. The next promo I have here is a workshop I'm running on the 6th of July from 10 till 2 p.m. This is a workshop in regards to strength in vulnerability. So often as we've spoken about here today, even within this webinar, that we face risks and uncertainty with pretty much everything we do. It's a part of our day-to-day lives. And we often find ourselves, when we're faced with these adversities, and they keep happening to us, we beat ourselves up for it, and we end up in places of stress and anxiety and all sorts of places, burnout, because we're trying to run the gauntlet and, do more things than we should. So this workshop is really about understanding how vulnerability affects us on a daily basis and bringing some understanding to what vulnerability is and how to help each of us process that. Vulnerability isn't easy for a lot of people because, as I've said, vulnerability is about uncertainty. It is about taking a risk, and it is about exposing yourself on an emotional basis. So those are pretty raw things to be a part of. So that is it for this week's webinar. Thank you for those who joined me. Oh, here we go. Next Friday's webinar, Friday the 15th. How to start feeling confident, worthy, and enough. So I will pop the link to all these promos in the comments box. Be sure to jump on and have a look, have a bit more of a read on each of the links. I would love you to join me. I will talk about it next week, but I am away for the end of July, which covers 2 Fridays. So I might just do some lives while I'm away, or I may organise a webinar to just pop in, maybe a pre-recorded one, because I may not have reception everywhere I'm going. So yeah, I will have a think about that this week and see what we're going to do while I'm away, but I'll be definitely having some lives and showing off the beautiful North Queensland weather in the Whitsundays. So again, thank you for joining me. You can find me on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and my Facebook group here, for those of you who are not a member, LinkedIn, Anchor, Instagram, and TikTok. Have a fabulous rest of your Friday, everyone, and I will see you on the flip side. Ciao.